advertising is a waste of money because one of the videos I did not too long ago, I was say it was kind of one of those things where I said, "Hey, it's not about a magic hashtag. It's not about SEO. It's really about the quality of your work. And when your work improves, you're going to get a bigger readership. It's going to come." And I always get pushback to that, which is always a little bit disheartening to me because when I say to people, it's about the quality of your work. You can't hide good work on the internet. People get upset and for me, that's an optimistic statement because what it says is, although you might not be successful or popular, you might not be building a large audience right now. You might not be connecting with your audience right now. You can, and here's how you do it. You've got to focus on writing better and stuff like that. Mainly writing and also drawing things like lettering, some of the basics. And as you do that, you will build audience along with all of the other things. You can't do that under a bushel basket. Obviously, as you're improving your quality, you're also doing good social media and all that stuff. But the quality really has to come first. And it disappoints me when people are upset about that because it's like they want the magic hashtag to be real. They want the answer to be SEO. They want the answer to be uh, well, you're just not marketing this right. If you just use the correct color of mauve in your comic, then audiences will respond. Uh, I would rather it be about the quality. Really, wouldn't you? Instead of trying to learn a magic hashtag, wouldn't you rather the answer be quality as opposed to something like that? So I always get pushback, and one person pushed back and said, "Well, I know this person. They do a great comic. They just don't. If they would only pay for advertising, they could get a better audience. They would only buy ads." And it's like, no, wow. Not only now, listen, it's one thing if you're going to waste your time on social media with a bad social media, with a bad social media approach, right? Like we've talked about on the lives before, right? If you're posting a link to your comic instead of posting the comic itself on social media, that's a bad social media approach. But but if you're wasting your time doing that, it's free. You're not hurting anybody. You're not going into you're not building up credit card debt or anything else. Uh, you're just wasting your time. You're just spinning your wheels, and you'll learn sooner or later the right way to do this. But uh, once you start buying advertising, now you're wasting. Now you're putting money into the deal, and as I explained in that video that I did, that doesn't have nearly enough views. uh, it's a waste of money unless you really know what you're doing. And places like Google and Facebook, places where they either ask you to, like Google does, here, place your ads on websites and we'll get it out to websites. Forget about those ad blockers that we installed in the Chrome browser. We still want you to buy ads, and here's where you can do it. Right? We're going to pretend that all these. I don't. Sometimes I'm not so sure those numbers are real because there's no way of verifying the numbers, but we won't get into that. That might be me just being a little suspicious. But also Facebook. Facebook, when they ask you to promote a post or any of the other social media, including TikTok, when they ask you to promote a post, they're telling you to get money involved into that. Now, promoting posts gets into a question of organic versus inorganic reach. And I haven't done a video on that yet. I do plan to. In fact, I should make a note while I'm sitting here because that's a super, super good one. Inorganic reach. Uh, so we're not going to go too far into that, but I did talk about advertising, and then when you're doing like putting an ad up either on Google AdWords, I would even there was Project Wonderful a while ago, which was a good idea for its time, but its time had passed long before it finally closed down. Yeah, it's hold on, I want to read that one comment. Plus, you want to make sure people aren't coming in too early and seeing content that may not be ready. Oh my God, that is such a good point, and it's something that I have a hard time getting across to people yet. Sometimes you don't want to advertise just yet, because and I'm again, I put myself up here as living proof on a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of people who saw my early comics work, Greystone Inn, and said, "Nah, not for me," which is fair. You know, yeah, that's fair. That somebody looks at your stuff and says, "Not for me." That's a fair thing to say. Um, but all you got to do is look at my work and see that everything has changed about it over 20 years. Uh, I wasted a lot of time and wasted a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of people who saw me back then who have an exact idea of who I am that's not accurate anymore. It's not a bad thing to I don't want to say labor in obscurity because that sounds depressing and horrible, but it's not a bad thing to do your work, put your head down for a couple years, and let that thing grow organically. And instead of buying advertising, the problem with buying advertising is that it's really such a complicated endeavor. You don't have the wherewithal, you don't have the background, you don't have the demographic numbers, you don't have the statistics and the data, you don't have anything that you need to buy advertising wisely. And this is coming from a guy that spends an awful lot of time telling you that you can do it yourself. I'll tell you that you can do a great deal of marketing and promotion yourself. I'll tell you, you can do self-publishing. Absolutely, you can do self-publishing. I'll tell you, you can do your own print run. You can do your own crowdfunding. I'll tell you, you can do any number of things. Advertising is not on that list. It's way too complicated. It involves way too many variables. It involves a lot of data collection. It involves a lot that you're not prepared to do. And Google, when they sell, Google AdWords and Google ad placement, they know this. They don't care. They just want your money. But they know that you're not prepared to do this. And they know that you don't know. And so they set you right up and they tell you you've got all these controls. And in the right hands, those controls would be very useful. Uh, these are not those hands. Okay. So what ends up happening is you do this scattershot approach to advertising, and it has a certain effect because let's face it, and even a blind squirrel finds an acorn, you get a certain effect, and then just the same way with comic conventions, gambler's mentality takes place, and then you're like, well, I'm gonna roll those dice again, and on and on and on it goes. The problem is it doesn't get you anything. I had a long somebody had hired me for a consultation, and he was buying advertising, and I'd gone through and I'd done the top down work down on his site, his Patreon, and past Kickstarters. I did the whole thing that I usually do for a comics consultation. And I said, we were on, this was pre-Zoom, so it had to have been, Google Meetup or whatever, Skype. Can you imagine being Skype and watching Zoom just waltz right in 2020 and take over all of that business that they should have been prepared for? Wow. Anyway, I was on Skype with this guy and I said, the first thing I want you to do is stop spending money on advertising. And he was very upset. What do you mean? I'm generating a great degree of generating great traffic doing advertising. It's working. It's bringing people in. And I said, nah, it's not doing anything. And your advertising is horrible. Your advertising is basically, hey, read my comic. And that's horrible advertising. That's not targeted. That's nothing. It's do you like comics? Well, then read mine. Does McDonald's say, hey, do you like food? No. Does Disney say, hey, do you like vacations? No. They sell an experience. They sell any number of things, but they don't sell, hey, do you like food? They and because they put tens of thousands of dollars into people for whom this is their avocation and their passion. So I said, this is horrible. You're doing bad advertising. I can't imagine it's doing you any good. and I want you to stop it. He was also he was in one of these situations in which uh, he was facing financial distress unless he turned things around very quickly. He was in a financial uh, spin out. He was spiraling. He was in a death spiral. And I said, first thing we're going to do is stop those ads, and we'll focus a little bit more on social media. But we're gonna stop the ads. And he said, absolutely not. We can't do that. Those ads are working. Take a look at the traffic. The ads are working. They're bringing new readers in. That's what he was. He was convinced, bringing new readers in. And I said, well, you want to prove it to yourself. You do it in 3 steps. He says, what are those? I said, well, first, you stop all advertising and establish a baseline. That's your readers that come to your site or come to your page, whatever it is you're measuring. And this would work just as well on stuff like Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. Uh, Establish a baseline. This is your audience. These are people that are just into you right now. They're the ones that you captured. They're your fans. They're your base. All right. Next, uh, start up the ads and do your best. Do your best advertising. And we'll run them for 2 weeks. We'll run them for a month if you want. And no, causality, I don't have a degree in marketing. I have a degree of getting kicked in the teeth, making really bad decisions, and learning from them. Although this is one I learned through some other people, but I never spent more than like $20 on advertising, and that's over a 20-year career. I never spent a lot of money on advertising, but I said, okay, once you've established your baseline, you're going to start the ads for 2 to 4 weeks, and you're going to chart the traffic then. And of course, that traffic is going to rise. It's going to go up because that's what happens. Even if you're completely doing the worst, you're going to get somebody's going to be curious. You're going to hit somebody just right on that day, and they're going to be intrigued, and they'll click that ad and they'll come over. Okay. Whether that's a click farm or not is another thing altogether, and click farms are another thing that you should take some time to learn about if you're thinking about wasting your money on advertising. But after that 2 to 4 week period is over, we're going to stop the ads. And what's going to happen next is you're going to watch that traffic go right back down to the baseline or very near it. And what that means is all of those readers that you thought were coming and staying were not staying. They were coming and bouncing. They were coming and leaving. They came because they saw something in that ad that made them come. Something intrigued them, which is truly part of the battle. I won't say half the battle, but it is part of the battle. That's the beginning salvo of the battle. They came, they looked at the comic, and they said, this is not what I wanted. And they got the hell out. All right. Maybe you kept some of them. But what happens is, if you see that traffic go right back to the baseline, is for something like a comic. We're not talking about selling merchandise here. We're talking about trying to build a readership. When you see that audience drop right back down to the baseline, then you know that you wasted your money. You didn't keep any of those people. Solar Falcon taking another tapping break. Are click farms the watch this advertisement for more game currency? No, what click farms are is this. So for any number of reasons, you might hire a click farm and this mainly started on social media. But what they did was, if you wanted to make it, for example, on Facebook, if you wanted to launch a Facebook page and you wanted to have a lot of likes, right? Because the more likes a Facebook page has, the more it gets shared, the more prominently it gets shared. They can use that number to impress people and to forge business deals for any number of different ways. right? So and of course it's just impressive to say, hey, take a look at this. No Shoes for Tuesday has 2 million likes on its Facebook page, so it must be good, right? So you would hire somebody in a not somebody who is not particularly above board to see to it that you would get those likes on your Facebook page. And there are companies, they come right through Instagram direct messages every couple months with me, where they say, "Hey, we can get more likes for your posts. We can get we can get you more followers. We can deliver followers to your Instagram site. We can do this, we can do that." Well, the way they're doing that is that they've got banks and banks of computers in certain places, certain countries where they can hire people very, very cheaply, and they hire these people to click. It's a click farm. That's what they're farming is clicks, and they will if they've got a certain number of things. If you hire them for your services, you are one of the things that they will be clicking. Okay, whether it's giving you likes or giving you shares or whatever. But what they found out very quickly, this is where it gets a little bit dicey, is if Facebook was able to say, hey, wait a minute, this one page is getting a whole lot of likes from this one user. Okay, something's going on there, and they shut that down. And so what the click farms had to do is they have to tell people, okay, here's 5 places that you're going to click. Now, as you're out doing that, go and click on a whole bunch of other things so it kind of spreads out the clicks. So 5 of them are going to be the ones that we're getting paid for. You're going to throw some random clicks in there for free. And that's what a click farm is. And it's something that's been pretty well documented. It's another reason I don't pay for social media promotion is because I know that is still out there. Oh, and Amazon buying reviews? Absolutely. That was just a big news story just a week ago where they got exposed for that. But absolutely. So and by the way, that leads us right back into our inorganic and organic search thing because this will be what I say in the video when I get it prepared. But let's say that you are you're a comics artist and you've got a social media audience that is 100 people, okay? But they're all 100 people who you gained fairly, okay? In other words, they're actually fans. They actually read your stuff. It's only 100. It's only 100. And the person next to you, let's say, or in an alternate mirror universe, the mirror universe of you was tempted and promoted a bunch of posts, and that person has 10,000 people following them, following on social media. Okay. But since a number of those were click farm clicks and they didn't really exist, those people don't really exist. They're not checking back on your next post to see how you're doing, or they're not reading your comic and liking it. They were paid for the click and they moved on because they're getting paid pennies and they're clicking their little fingers off. Okay. So there's 2 dimensions, your Earth 1 and Earth 2. On Earth 1, you make a tweet and 10 people respond to it. Well, 10 out of 10, or I'm sorry, 10 out of 100 is 10%. Even I can do that math. In fact, that's why I told you that there was 100, so I could do the easy math. 10% is really good. So when the algorithm sees that 10% of your audience responded to that, it puts it out to even more people, and it spreads it out to people who may not be following you. And it's delivering that message further and further and further, depending on which social media we're talking about, right? They all work a little bit different, but the algorithm all kind of works the same in that if you say something that gets engagement, it goes further. It propagates it further and further out. So at the end of the day, most of your 100 followers saw that message, and some of them, or for whatever reasons, either some of them shared it or whatever, but you might have even gained new followers because of that tweet, because you said something that was worth engaging with. I want you to remember that statement that I just made. You said something worth engaging with. That's called organic reach. You didn't pay for it. It just happened organically. And it's very effective. Same thing when somebody says, well, there's nothing like word of mouth advertising. Well, word of mouth advertising is organic reach. Now, in Earth 2, the parallel universe, that same version of you made that same tweet. Okay, but they have social media of 10,000. However, many of those 10,000 followers are not real people and are not looking and will never look. Okay. As a result, let's give you, what did I say? 10? Let's say you broke through every statistical anomaly and 10 people reacted. Okay. But it's 10 out of 10,000. And when it's a minuscule amount. In other words, it's a fraction that I'm not even going to come up with. What is it? 0.01% or 0.001%? It's a ridiculously small percent. And the algorithm says, hey, for somebody with 10,000 followers, this didn't get very much attention. So la 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 loom, right down into the bottom of the fish tank it goes, and your social media post gets covered up. It gets hidden, not because they're shadow banning it like TikTok is doing to me, but because it just filters to the bottom and there's other things being posted over top of it. Okay, 0.001%. Thank you, causality. It's ridiculously small. And even if you, like I said, even if you play with those numbers anyway, the fact of the matter is that you're always going to have a huge chunk of those users who are not actually there. They're like zombies. They're robots. They're imaginary people. And so it's always going to dampen your engagement. Okay, you're way better off with 100 people who like you than you are with 10,000 people that you bought. That's the whole idea of organic reach. But you've got to, what did I tell you to remind me of? You got to say something worth engaging with. So since we're talking about marketing, let's just bring it home. I'm on a roll. Let's keep going. So you can imagine, by the way, when I teach my class at University of the Arts, this is exactly what happens. I'm like, all right, I don't care what else I had planned on the docket for today. I'm on a roll. We're going to keep talking about this. So let's go further here. So you've listened to Geiger, and he's told you that organic reach is the way to go, and all right, go with Geiger. We're gonna do this organic reach, and you post your next post on Twitter, and it is, hey, read my comic, and it's a a link to someplace else, and nobody can read it unless they click the link, and all those things that I've told you not to do. Or screw it. Let's say you did better. You heard Brad, chewing you out for that over TikTok. And so you actually posted the comic and you said, here's today's comic. And then bing, there it is. The problem with that is there's nothing to engage there. In fact, that is very, very lazy social media. Hey, here's my comic. Lazy as hell. There's nothing to engage with there. Now, listen, I know what you're saying. Hey, the comic underneath of it took me 10 hours to do. There's nothing lazy about 10 hours. I get it. But that's not how social media gets it. Social media takes the comic as given. What they want to engage with is you. What do you got to say about that comic? Remember what I told you. You can, if you're not sure what to say, you always talk about your pride and your joy, because those are two things that nobody can give you clap back on. I was very proud of this because this comic, working on this comic, brought me joy, and here's why: pride and joy. You can never go wrong talking about your pride and joy. Here's the other one: ask a question. People love to answer questions. They love to be the person who knows. I know the answer to this question, or they just want to be involved. And sometimes it's not even I know the answer to this question. Sometimes It's they wouldn't have thought to interact with you, but asking them a question gives them the open door, and now, bing, they're there. Hey, thanks for inviting me to the conversation. I have your answer to your question. The answer is 0.001. Okay, or whatever the answer was. Uh, that is something that never ever fails, is the ability to answer a question. People love that. The thing you got to do is you've got to think about, why would somebody want to engage with this post that I'm getting ready to send? And if you want some excellent thoughts on that, it was one of the very, very early episodes of the Comic Lab podcast. But it was we had one of our friends, Kevin McShane, and Kevin was and is an editor over at BuzzFeed, doing amazing stuff. And of course, BuzzFeed, they have long ago put an awful lot of research into what gets engagement on social media. So we had Kevin over. We said, hey, we want our social media to be more impactful. How do we get people to engage with social media? And Kevin told us about the idea of a share thought. Okay, so it was this. Why would somebody share this? What thought would be in their head? And he listed about 4 or 5 common share thoughts that they all were like go-to share thoughts, right? One of them was, hey, here's something that I think everybody should know. Another share thought was, this made me feel very strongly, a very strong emotion, right? Like when you see those videos that people are always sharing about the guy that comes home from being in the armed forces overseas, and he surprises his mom. She comes down for coffee, and he's sitting at the coffee table, right? And she hugs him, and everybody starts crying, and you're sitting there watching it, and you get all emotional, right? Uh, that's that's exactly what that video was generated to do. It did and that's why you shared it, was because it gave you a strong emotional feeling. And there's a number of these share thoughts. And the dog running, yeah, oh yeah, the dog starts running, his little tail is wagging. He's such a happy puppy. Yeah, and by the way, I'm looking up there. 5,000 likes makes me incredibly proud. Thank you very much. I appreciate that for all those you and your sore fingers. I really do appreciate that. So so yeah, that when you're making a social media post, I want you to think about, what's the share thought here? Why is somebody going to engage with this? And if you don't have, and by the way, you don't let yourself off the hook. It can't be something like, well, because it's a good comic. Nah, wrong. You need to go above that. And I know that stinks, but it's just the truth. It's got to be something, unless that comic is really, really good, right? Unless this is one of the ones that's just a home run, and people are going to share it because it's such a good comic, and that happens sometimes. But you also have to think about, uh, why would somebody share this, and give it a little push, give it a little spin to give it some help. And that's just 1/4 of social media. And if you listen to the Comic Lab podcast, you know what I'm going to tell you next. If you want to improve what you're doing on social media right now, uh, then you need to think about what we call the 4 C's of social media. Okay. In other words, creative people really have a hard time with social media because the only thing they can think to post is one of the C's, content. For us comics people, it's the comic itself, right? Here's my comic. That's that's 1/4 of the 4C, and it's not even the entire fourth, right? Because the other content is just other thoughts that you might have. But you post your comic, and then you can't think of what else to say on social media. This probably sounds familiar to at least 1 or 2 of you. I don't know what to say on social media. It's a question we get all the time on Comic Lab. What do I say on social media? So Content is one, and that's any original thought you may have and any original work. The next is commercial. Hey, join us on Patreon. We're having a lot of fun over there. It's a big party, and you're invited. Here's my Kickstarter. Here's how you can get some great rewards and all of this, right? You go down the commercial thing. There's two C's right there that you can post a lot about. Third one is the one that we always forget, and that is curation. In other words, you sharing somebody else's stuff. Artists never think to do that because we think, well, they're just there to follow me because I'm so great. Well, no, they're also there to see what you like. So when I share one of Dave's comics, for example, that's curation, right? When Dave shares one of Scott Kurtz's comics, that's curation. When Scott Kurtz shares one of Ernie Bushmiller's comics, that's me getting very upset because I was supposed to be in the number 3 spot there and I got skipped over for Ernie Bushmiller again. But you see what I'm saying? It's curation. It's and it's not only comics. It's anything that you want to share. Be careful. Be careful. Use the same kind of protocol you would at a dinner party, right? Politics, religion. Be very, very careful with those topics because they can be very divisive. And you may think that you're slam dunking on the person that opposes your political viewpoint and so on and so forth. But a lot of the people who might have enjoyed your comic might be of that political viewpoint. You have to feel very passionately about that to before you let that go and start to mess with your audience building. All right. There's a time and a place for that. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, between seeing you make an angry tweet about a political event and seeing you go out and get involved in politics, maybe give your side some money or step out in the street for a protest or go out and volunteer for a campaign, out of all those things that I mentioned, making an angry tweet it has absolutely zero value, but those other things do have value. And sometimes because we sent the angry tweet, we think, well, I've done my business. I've done my part. I've done my part. I sent an angry tweet. Well, no, that's that's not what it's about. And there's a real danger. We call it slacktivism, right? There's a real danger there that you think you're done and you really haven't. So be very careful about topics like politics, religion, stuff like that, because the divisive nature of them can hurt your audience build. All right, my friends. Hopefully we'll do this again Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay creative, and do check out the Comic Lab podcast. We've got some great episodes coming up, including our 200th episode, where we are going to. We've got some surprises for the 200th episode. We've got some real surprises. Stay tuned. All right, my friends. Goodbye, everybody.